Did you know Americans didn't used to shower every day? That most homes didn't even worry about germs? That is, until companies like Procter and Gamble invented a brand new fear: invisible, lurking filth. From 1950s suburbia to 1980s commercial overload, they turned cleanliness into a kind of consumer religion. In this video, we'll uncover how germ fear was manufactured, marketed, and monetized, and how it shaped the way we clean, shop, and live even today. In the 1930s and 40s, American homes were clean, but not paranoid. Most people bathed a few times a week, cleaned their kitchens with soap and water, and saw dirt as an inconvenience, not a threat. There were no antibacterial sprays under every sink, no disinfectant wipes in purses. If a child dropped a cookie on the floor, the 5-second rule wasn't a joke. It was common sense. Housewives took pride in tidy homes, but cleanliness was more about order and appearance than microbes. Germs existed, sure, but the idea that they lurked everywhere, on doorknobs, countertops, even air, hadn't yet taken root. It was a slower, more tactile world, one where bleach had its place, but not its mythology. And then, after the war, everything began to change. After World War II, America transformed almost overnight. Returning soldiers became homeowners, women became housewives again, and the suburbs bloomed like never before. It was the birth of the nuclear family and the modern American home, with shiny new appliances, wall-to-wall carpeting, and color-coordinated everything. Cleanliness wasn't just about health anymore. It was a symbol of upward mobility. A spotless kitchen was proof you'd made it. Washing machines, vacuum cleaners, and floor polishers became emblems of pride, sold with slogans like labor saving and time for you. But soon, those gleaming surfaces would become battlegrounds. Because if a home could be perfect, marketers wondered, what if it could also be unsafe? Procter & Gamble had already made its name selling soap. Ivory, famously 99 and 44 100% pure. But post-war America gave the company a new challenge. How do you sell more soap to a nation that already has enough? The answer was simple and genius. Turn soap into identity. P&G began to market cleanliness not just as hygiene, but as morality. Ivory ads showed babies with dewy skin, mothers with glowing faces. Soap became a symbol of virtue. It wasn't about dirt anymore. It was about being a good person, a good mother, a good American. And with each new product, P&G stretched the idea of cleanliness further. From something you do occasionally to something you must maintain every day, everywhere. It started with a phrase, kills 99.9% of germs. It was everywhere by the late 60s, on soap bars, toothpaste tubes, toilet bowl cleaners. It sounded scientific, specific, and safe. But what it really sold was fear. Advertisers began to lean hard into the language of contamination, invisible threats, bacteria hotspots, hidden dangers in your home. The more invisible the enemy, the more product you needed to fight it. Benefits like softness or scent took a back seat. What mattered now was protection. Fear, it turned out, was a better motivator than luxury. And American households armed with sprays, wipes, and suds began to fight a war they'd never even noticed before. In the 1950s, the American dream came with a polished linoleum floor. For women, especially housewives, cleanliness wasn't just a chore. It was a moral scoreboard. Ads made it clear. A clean home meant you were doing your job. A smudge on the counter? That was failure. A sick child. Maybe you didn't sanitize enough. Marketers leaned into guilt like it was a lever. Good mothers killed germs wasn't just a line. It was a judgment. Women were shown battling bacteria with smiles, dressed to the nines in aprons and pearls. Housework became performative, a measure of care, character, even patriotism. If your sink sparkled, you loved your family, and if it didn't, well, maybe you didn't love them quite enough. Before it was the spray we now associate with toilets and countertops. Lysol had a darker origin. In the early 1900s, it was quietly marketed to women as a feminine hygiene product, code for internal disinfectant. The messaging was chilling. Be clean or be unworthy. Early ads warned of marital failure caused by poor hygiene, subtly blaming women for their husbands' dissatisfaction. The product was sold as both protection and submission. Sanitize yourself to be lovable, agreeable, and pure. Over time, as germ theory gained traction, Lysol shifted from personal use to household use. But the emotional residue stayed. Cleanliness was never just about health. It was about control, respectability, and quietly, obedience. By the 1960s and 70s, America was locked in a full-blown war on dirt, and business was booming. Cleaning products flooded the shelves, each promising to destroy more germs than the last. Bleach was no longer just for laundry, it was a weapon. Commercials showed spotless homes being ambushed by invisible threats, kitchen sponges, bathroom tiles, children's toys, all crawling with danger. The solution? Sprays, scrubs, powders, and foams. Germs were cast as invaders, and disinfectants became the last line of defense. The private fear of what if it's not clean enough turned public. Everyone was buying, everyone was scrubbing. To be clean was to be normal. To be dirty, that was risky business. Marketers had a new problem. Germs couldn't be seen, so they got creative. Television ads began using dramatized germ graphics to make the invisible horrifyingly real. Glowing green handprints on doorknobs, slow-motion sneezes in blue light, Petri dishes blooming with filth after a child touched a lunchbox. These weren't just visuals, they were psychological weapons. The message was simple: you can't trust your eyes. That seemingly clean counter, it's teeming with microscopic enemies. These graphics made fear tangible, and once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. Every light switch, every shared phone became a potential biohazard. Germs had become villains, and your home was the front line. As fear took hold, brands smelled opportunity. If germs could hide anywhere, then you needed a product for everywhere. Suddenly, one all-purpose cleaner wasn't enough. There were sprays for windows, disinfectants for toilets, wipes for phones, foam for kitchen sponges. Even the air got its own sanitizers. This wasn't just convenience. It was strategy. Brands didn't wait for demand. They created it. Commercials highlighted obscure threats like bacteria on doorknobs and then sold the fix. The idea was precision. Each surface required its own specialized weapon. Consumers weren't just cleaning anymore. They were conducting chemical warfare. And the more products you had, the safer you felt, or so they made you believe. By the 1970s, American hygiene habits had transformed. Daily showers became the norm. Hand washing surged. People weren't just cleaning more often. They were thinking about it constantly. What once had been a weekly mop or a seasonal scrub was now a daily ritual of wiping, spraying, and disinfecting. Survey data from the time showed growing anxiety around germs and contamination. Cleanliness was no longer just physical, it was moral. A clean person was seen as disciplined, successful, even patriotic. After all, this was the Cold War era. Disorder was dangerous. Clean homes and clean bodies became stand-ins for American strength. You weren't just scrubbing a sink, you were defending your way of life. You know the term soap opera? That wasn't just a nickname. In the early days of radio and TV, soap companies, especially Procter and Gamble, literally created these dramas to sell their products. Shows like Guiding Light and As the World Turns were full-blown marketing platforms disguised as storytelling. P&G embedded cleaning routines, homemaking standards, and product mentions right into the plot. The audience? Primarily housewives. the exact demographic they wanted to reach. Over time, it worked. These weren't just shows, they became emotional lifelines, and the brands behind them gained more than visibility. They earned trust, loyalty, a daily presence in people's lives. Soap became more than soap, it became part of the family. If fear sells, fear for your child sells even faster. Marketers knew this, and by the 1970s, they were pulling every emotional lever they could. Ads showed adorable babies crawling across floors, immediately followed by dramatic visuals of invisible germs swarming beneath them. Commercials warned of filthy toys, infected pacifiers, unsafe bathtubs. The message? You're not just cleaning, you're protecting. A dirty house wasn't just lazy, it was dangerous, neglectful, and if your child got sick, maybe it was because you didn't disinfect that doorknob or wipe that teddy bear. These campaigns didn't just target cleanliness, they targeted identity, because what kind of parent lets their baby crawl through danger? In 1958, a bald, muscular man in a white t-shirt stormed American television screens. His name, Mr. Clean. He was part genie, part janitor, and all control. He didn't just clean, he dominated dirt. He gleamed like the surfaces he scrubbed. For Procter & Gamble, Mr. Clean wasn't just a mascot. He was a statement. In an age where housewives were told they had to fight invisible threats alone, here was a magical man who made it look easy and kind of fun. His jingle was unforgettable. Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease in just a minute. Over the years, he became more than a cartoon. He was an icon of sterility, simplicity, and safety. He made dirt the enemy and himself the solution. By the 1980s, cleanliness wasn't just a routine. It was a status symbol. Neighborhoods buzzed with subtle competition. Whose lawn was greener, whose floors shone brighter, whose house smelled like lemon-scented victory. Women's magazines and daytime talk shows pushed impossibly high domestic standards. Spotless homes were equated with control, care, even class, and guilt. That became a tool of the trade. Ads didn't just suggest you clean, they asked if you were doing enough. A single speck of dust became a moral failing. What will the neighbors think? Wasn't just a joke. It was the pressure point that kept people scrubbing. Cleanliness had officially moved from personal habit to public performance. By the 1980s, the messaging around cleanliness had done more than change habits. It had reshaped how people thought. What began as sensible hygiene evolved into compulsive behavior. Studies started linking obsessive cleaning with rising anxiety rates, especially among women managing households. Scrubbing became a coping mechanism. Ads had normalized behaviors that bordered on obsessive-compulsive, bleaching a countertop 3 times a day, or disinfecting doorknobs after every guest. And when someone hesitated, they'd say, "I'm not paranoid, I'm just clean." That line became a shield. But underneath it, a creeping unease that nothing was ever really clean enough. The marketing didn't just sell products, it sold insecurity, and it stuck. By the late 1980s, Americans were spending billions each year on cleaning products. But it wasn't just about quantity. It was the illusion of choice. Brands released the same formula in 10 different scents or slightly tweaked packaging to create new versions. There were lemon disinfectants, lavender germ killers, antibacterial sprays with aloe. These weren't innovations, they were expansions. Why? Because once cleaning became a routine, it became a subscription model. People bought the same products over and over like clockwork. Households became recurring revenue streams. And as homes got fuller, storage closets started to look like miniature cleaning supply stores. This wasn't cleanliness, it was consumerism, dressed in white gloves. As the market matured, brands had to get creative. And what better way to sell more cleaning products than to invent new dangers? Enter antibacterial everything. Soaps, wipes, sprays, even fabrics. The promise, kill more germs than ever before. The problem? It worked too well. Scientists warned that overuse of antibacterials could lead to resistant strains, so-called super germs. But the companies that helped create the panic just leaned in harder. Ads showed increasingly apocalyptic threats, germs mutating, spreading, surviving. The fear wheel kept spinning. People weren't just cleaning dirt anymore. They were fighting invisible monsters, and the products that created the problem, they now offered the cure. Again. Decades of cleanliness marketing didn't just reshape homes, it reshaped how we viewed other people. Strangers became biohazards. The guy who didn't wash his hands, a walking threat. The woman who skipped deodorant, socially suspicious. Personal care exploded in response. Mouthwash wasn't about freshness, it was about shame. Dandruff wasn't a mild condition, it was a crisis of confidence. The market expanded beyond cleaning surfaces to cleaning selves. Skin, hair, armpits, breath, nothing was safe. And each problem came with a product, a solution, and a marketing campaign that whispered, if you're not cleaning it, you're probably disgusting. That wasn't health. That was fear, monetized, bottled, and sold on every shelf in America. In 2020, a familiar fear came roaring back. Shelves were stripped bare. Hand sanitizers vanished overnight. Lysol and Clorox wipes were rationed like gold. And there it was again. That old phrase from the 1950s, kills 99.9% of germs. It suddenly felt urgent, powerful, comforting. Brands didn't have to invent new language, just recycle it. The paranoia that had been carefully built over decades was still sitting there, right below the surface. COVID didn't just trigger a public health crisis, it reignited a cultural script that had already been written. And the public responded on cue, scrubbing doorknobs, sanitizing groceries, disinfecting hands to the bone. The messaging was old. The reaction was instant, and it worked. In chasing perfect cleanliness, we gave up more than we realized. Time, hours spent disinfecting things that didn't need disinfecting. Money, hundreds of dollars a year on products we were told we had to buy. Mental energy burned on rituals that kept anxiety at bay. Not dirt. But the toll wasn't just personal, it was ecological. The boom in disposable wipes, chemical sprays, and plastic bottles left a lasting mark on landfills and waterways. And maybe most importantly, we lost trust in our bodies, in the natural resilience of immune systems. Somewhere along the way, we stopped believing that a little dirt might be okay, that not every surface needed to be a battlefield. We forgot how to live with the world around us. From a marketing perspective, it was nothing short of genius. Take something ordinary, soap, and turn it into a shield against invisible danger. Position cleaning not as a task, but as an act of love, of patriotism, of moral duty. And once that fear took hold, you didn't need to sell the product anymore. The consumer did it themselves. But from a human perspective, it's a more complicated legacy. We didn't just buy soap. We bought fear and we passed it down, generation after generation. The brilliance of Procter & Gamble wasn't in making better cleaning products. It was in selling control. Clean became a performance, a defense, a way to feel safe in an unsafe world, and it changed everything. We think of soap as harmless, innocent, just part of life. But behind every bottle under your sink is a century of strategy, a campaign not just for your money, but for your mindset. They didn't just make you want to be clean, they made you afraid not to be. Understanding that story isn't about blaming brands. It's about remembering that fear is a powerful salesman, and the next time you see kills 99.9%, you'll know exactly who you're really buying from and why. If this video made you rethink the smell of lemon-scented bleach or the way fear can be bottled and sold, go ahead and hit subscribe. There's more where this came from. Give the video a like if it sparked something, and share your thoughts below. Did you grow up in a germ-free household? Do you think we're still living under the shadow of that paranoia today? And if you want to see how another seemingly innocent industry turned into a billion-dollar persuasion machine, check out our video on QVC. It's wild, trust me.